Amazing discovery, Billionaire uncovers touching secret after Maid fell unconscious in son's room. Mark Thompson stood frozen in the doorway, heart racing as he watched the scene unfold before him. Anna, their longtime maid, lying still on the floor of Josh's room, a look of pain etched across her face. Panic surged within him, not just for her, but for the way this event threatened to strip back the glossy veneer of his life. He was a billionaire, a tech visionary, and yet, in this moment, he felt utterly powerless. The inside of the house felt foreign, stripped of its charm, and instead tainted with raw, unfiltered reality. "Call 911. He yelled, but the urgency sounded hollow, echoing off the pristine walls of the expansive home he had built. What would the neighbors think? His life was meant to be a polished display of success, not a scene of chaos. Beyond the immediate fear for Anna's well-being, a deeper dread lay in the shadows of his mind. How could he have let this happen? The girl in front of him, who had sacrificed so much to support her family, now lay vulnerable, and it made him question everything: the values he upheld, the life he lived, and even the strained relationship he had with Josh. As he knelt beside Anna, he noticed the scattered pieces around her crumpled sketches bursting with color. What are these? He wondered, guilt intertwining with curiosity. His stomach twisted as he grasped the root of her hidden talent, overshadowed by the relentless demands of survival. In a pristine neighborhood where every lawn was manicured to perfection, here was evidence of someone fiercely pursuing passion amid struggle. He had been so consumed by his own world that he hadn't seen the sacrifices others made, including Anna. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mark's breath stilled as he saw Josh, standing in the doorway, uncertainty painted on his face. Their eyes met, and the air thickened with unsaid words. Was he backing away in fear or disgust? Did he feel the weight of expectation that loomed over him since birth? What should we do, Dad? Josh's voice quivered, revealing his own cracks beneath a perfect facade. Mark hesitated, battling the urge to recoil into the comfortable distance he usually maintained between them. Those moments they used to share, filled with creativity and dreams, felt like echoes of a different lifetime. Anna began to stir, and Mark refocused, determination mingling with desperation. He glimpsed the kind of tenacity in her he'd neglected to nurture in Josh. In a bizarre sense, Anna had unknowingly grasped a thread he had let slip away. What did his wealth mean if he couldn't fortify the emotional links in his family? This was a breaking point, and with each pulse of chaos ensnaring the room, he couldn't help but wonder if it would bring them together or fracture what strained connections remained. As the sirens wailed in the distance, the path forward remained muddied. What lay beneath the surface, once hidden in the simplicity of everyday life, now simmered with emotional complexity. Mark was left breathless, staring into the uncertainty, but he felt, deep down, that this crisis was only the prologue to a far more complicated narrative. The paramedics arrived moments later, pulling Mark from his reverie as they hurried into the room, prioritizing Anna's health over the chaos. He stepped back, allowing them to take control, but his mind raced. Watching them attend to her ignited a deep-seated anger within him, not at the responders, but at himself. He had indulged in luxury and easiness, overlooking the very real struggles of those around him. He was a man of many accomplishments, the CEO, the innovator, but confronted by the frailty of life, he found himself wanting. Josh still lingered in the doorway, shifting anxiously. Mark wanted to bridge the chasm that had grown between them. Just breathe, he said gently, meeting his son's wide-eyed stare. They're professionals. They'll take care of her. Yet his own words felt hollow. Could he truly protect and support anyone? It was a battle of helplessness waged within the confines of his upscale life, where he had built walls, both literally and figuratively, around himself and his family. As the paramedics worked, Mark caught a glimpse of Josh's hands fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. The boy was facing a reality shaking the very foundation of their meticulously curated lives. "Josh, look at me," Mark said, forcing his voice to remain calm. "This is tough. We don't always have control over everything." How ironic that he, who orchestrated entire tech launches, felt powerless to navigate his own family dynamics. Wasn't he at time to challenge that notion? When will she wake up? Josh's voice cracked, vulnerability spilling into the atmosphere like an uninvited guest. Mark didn't have the answer, and for the first time in years perhaps ever he stood before his son as a man stripped of certainty. "I don't know," he admitted, the admission tasting bitter on his tongue. There was a quiet realization, this moment was about more than Anna, it was about rekindling connection with Josh. "Let us focus on what we can do right now, okay? We stay strong together." As the paramedics prepared to transport Anna, Mark made a decision fueled by an impulse he seldom relied on. He needed to break free from the constraints of wealth and superficial success. "Josh," he said, looking at his son with intensity, "let us go to the hospital. We'll stay by her side." Josh's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise touching his face. "Really? Really? It's important." With a nod that seemed more grown than a teenager should bear, Josh's uncertainty solidified into resolve. As they moved towards the door, something shifted within Mark. He had been so preoccupied with the transactional nature of their lives, yet here they were, choosing compassion over comfort. Would this tiny act of kindness become a catalyst for change? Later, although hours passed at the hospital felt like days, a new layer of awareness enveloped Mark. He began to see Anna not as an employee but as a resilient woman with dreams, much like his son. They waited together, a tentative yet hopeful bond slowly forming in the sterile alleys of uncertainty. "I think she's an artist," Josh observed aloud, referring to Anna's sketches. Mark felt the weight of those words land heavily but also spark a flicker of action within him. There was an unspoken truth in the realization. What if he could empower her to pursue her artistry? The very essence of his identity began to shift before his eyes. He started to contemplate helping those around him, fostering passion-freeing resources. However, such intentions brought forward another question: would he do the same for Josh? Could he cultivate his son's inherent talents before they dried under the harsh expectations of success? As Mark grappled with these evolving thoughts, he felt the stirrings of promise amidst the chaos. It was a small reclaiming of purpose, but with it came a challenge, to confront the obstacles formed by years of neglect, especially his own fears. "Dad?" Josh's tentative tone broke through the swirl of Mark's thoughts. "What's on your mind?" "I want to help her too." Those words lingered in the air, echoing a possibility he hadn't considered. As they waited, the weight of the moment lingered, the realization dawning that true success was not measured by assets but by the capacity to uplift those who sustain us. But what lay ahead was still fraught with uncertainty, and with every choice, a new challenge presented itself. The true test was yet to come, if they could channel this moment into something transformative, or let it slip into a fleeting glimmer of hope. The sterile air of the hospital felt suffocating, a physical reminder of the weight Mark had begun to understand. As Josh settled into a chair next to the window, fingers tapping nervously on the armrest, Mark sought to harness the swelling desire for change brewing within him. He had navigated boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations, but this was a new frontier, one where emotional investments mattered more than financial ones. Looking out at the night sky, the stars concealed behind a haze of city lights, Mark's heart raced with realizations. His life had been riddled with achievements that held no real meaning beyond a shallow facade. The moment Anna collapsed had stripped him of the comfort derived from business deals and stock options. He had become ensnared within a golden cage, far removed from the passions of those he employed. More disturbingly, he had distanced himself from his own son, who was now reaching out to him a life raft amidst the turbulent waters. "Dad, what do you think will happen?" Josh's timid voice gutted through Mark's introspective thoughts. Reflecting on the question wasn't easy. Mark had no medical knowledge, no prescient insights that could soothe a child's worries. "I think she'll be okay, Josh. The doctors are doing everything they can," he said, trying to imbue his words with an assertiveness he didn't quite feel. The uncertainty hung in the air, unyielding and unavoidable. Mark pulled his chair closer to Josh, the space between them shrinking to allow for openness. "What you said earlier about Anna being an artist. That wasn't just an observation, was it? You see something, don't you?" Josh's eyes flickered with recognition. "I mean, yeah. She does those sketches in her spare time. I just thought maybe she should show them to someone who could help." The young man had a point, and it struck Mark like a fresh diagnosis. Anna's potential, suppressed beneath layers of functionality and duty. What had he overlooked in pursuit of climbing the corporate ladder? What if we could help her? What if we made it our mission to support her art? Mark's thoughts cascaded uncontrollably. He envisioned workshops, mentorships, a world where creativity thrived rather than merely survived. "Yeah, we could connect her with artists, get her involved in galleries," Josh excitedly chimed in, a spark igniting in his previously dimmed eyes. A feeling akin to exhilaration rose within Mark. This revelation resonated deeply within him. Making a real difference was possible. If they nurtured Anna's artistic ambitions, perhaps they could all learn from it, fostering growth not just for her, but for themselves as well. But how would he instigate this shift? Could he navigate lending a hand instead of pulling strings? Suddenly, a sense of urgency crashed through him. "Josh, let us make a plan. We can approach the hospital staff, see if they have artist programs or connections." The prospect of proactive involvement thrilled him, yet he realized it would take more than just a plan. It required them to act with purpose. They spent the rest of the evening in the hospital, sketching their ideas, hustling to gather resources. The act of aligning their visions fueled a connection previously obscured by roles of CEO and son. For now, they had a common goal to rally around. But parallel to that excitement was a creeping dread, the fear of entering a new realm where he might fail, where he might feel again the lost connection to his own past, the artist he had buried beneath expectations. Yet, this was the price of growth, wasn't it? A willingness to face unknowns. As dawn broke outside the hospital window, a new resolve filled Mark. He needed to confront the deepest parts of himself, past disappointments, and support his son in a way that transcended material success. He could no longer afford to be merely a CEO, he had to be a father and a leader with real empathy. "Dad?" Josh's voice broke through again, pulling Mark from the abyss of his thoughts. "Yeah. Do you think we could invite her to our home once she's better, introduce her to some real artists?" The initiative nested in his son's words sent a shiver of resolve through Mark. "Absolutely, let us make that happen." But the moment of truth was fast approaching, the operation that would redefine their lives and stretch their capacities to confront vulnerability. The first test of their newfound commitment loomed. What if Anna resisted their intentions? Would their efforts be seen as hollow gestures in a world that had only cheaper, fast yields? For the first time in years, Mark felt the heady rush of something akin to hope wrestle with trepidation. The stakes had been raised. This wasn't merely about art, this was about reclaiming authenticity. As the morning sunlight began to spill into the hospital room, seeping through the blinds and casting elongated shadows on the sterile white sheets, Mark and Josh prepared to execute their plan. The air buzzed with a profound mixture of hope and anxiety. The stakes had never been higher. It wasn't simply about being an attentive father, nor was it just about supporting a friend in need. It was about rediscovering the essence of who they both were. "Josh, we need to focus on the specifics," Mark said, his voice steady, as if giving a motivational pep talk before a crucial board meeting. "What's our first step once Anna's awake?" Josh contemplated for a moment, flicking his eyes to the floor as if searching for the right words. "We should find out about art therapy programs. We can talk to the social workers here, they might have leads on local artists willing to help. Mark admired his son's initiative. This wasn't he the boy who once shuffled in his seat during presentations. This was an inquiring young man, ready to tackle the unknown. Great idea. Let us also think of a way to gather resources ourselves. I can talk to some contacts. I still have a network, and I can leverage it for good now. The disconnect that had plagued their relationship was beginning to fade into obscurity. In this space filled with uncertainty and hope, layers of tension peeled away, revealing a shared commitment that eclipsed corporate dynamics. Mark felt a pang of gratitude for this opportunity to grow with his son. But beneath this promising veneer lay a gnawing sense of apprehension. Could he really help Anna, or would his past self sabotage his intentions? As they worked through their strategy, the nurse entered with a brisk demeanor, inadvertently pulling Mark back into the present. Visiting hours are about to begin, she informed them. You can see Anna now, but I need to remind you that she may be disoriented after waking up. Mark's heart raced. He had imagined this moment, but reality felt more daunting than he had anticipated. Thank you. We will be gentle, he replied, not fully convinced of his own composure. The duo approached Anna's room cautiously, and as the door creaked open, Mark was struck by a vision of her frail figure, enveloped in a cocoon of white and pale blue. In that moment, her vulnerability overwhelmed him. Despite his past successes, this was a landscape he had never traversed. Sitting at her bedside, he exchanged looks with Josh, who squeezed his hand reassuringly. Mark could see the tension in Josh's features. He was just as apprehensive. Yet, as Anna's eyelids fluttered open slowly, revealing a faint glimmer of recognition, something deep within Mark stirred. Hey there, Anna, Mark began, his voice smooth yet punctuated with emotion. We're here to help you. The connection he had long yearned for cracked through the facade of years spent in boardrooms. The vulnerability Anna exuded stirred a profound realization. Leadership wasn't merely about power, it was about connection and empathy. As Anna's gaze wandered between father and son, something sparked in the air. She didn't merely need healing, she needed encouragement to pursue her dreams, to reclaim what had been lost. What do you think, Anna? Josh chimed in, his voice soft and genuine. Would you want to meet some artists and explore your art more when you're up for it? Mark's heart swelled with pride at his son's confidence. Their collaborative approach was not just a necessity but an awakening. It was as if each moment they spent together was recalibrating the compass of their relationship. Anna's faint smile was a breakthrough. The small gesture, a crack in the fortress of her weary state, signified hope. But as Mark shared a glance with Josh, he understood the complexities of this path. Would they truly encourage her to embrace artistry, or would the weight of reality crush those dreams before they took flight? Let us make sure we get back on track after today, he whispered to Josh. We have a mission to fulfill. But that mission held its own set of uncertainties. What if, despite their best intentions, Anna's passion was snuffed out by the harsh realities of life or the demands of her recovery? As he watched Anna's fingers twitch as if yearning to create, he felt the palpable tension, the ticking clock of their opportunity slipping silently away. The moment of truth loomed more prominently than ever. Their initial plans must evolve into something tangible, or they risked failure in more ways than one. In the quiet persistence of hope, Mark grasped they were standing at the precipice of something real and transformative if they dared to step forward and navigate the trepidation of vulnerability. But as they poured their hearts into nurturing Anna's creative spirit, Mark couldn't shake the looming worry: would this nurturing lead to renewal, or would it be a painful echo of the past? The answer lay just beyond their grasp, entwined with the next steps they would take together. As the hours rolled on, the hospital room buzzed with muted conversations and the gentle beeping of medical equipment. Mark's mind raced with strategies and questions. He had lived in a world dominated by deadlines and financial reports, and now he found himself navigating the emotional terrain of recovery. The encounter with Anna had opened a door he had long kept locked, yet he was terrified of what lay beyond it. Turning to Josh, Mark's voice steadied, revealing a newfound urgency. We need to brainstorm this art therapy idea more. If we really want to support her, we have to ensure it's not just talk. It's about action, real action. Josh nodded, the determination in his expression evident. I've been thinking, Dad. Maybe we could start a small fundraiser to get art supplies. We could spread the word and connect with local artists. Mark's heart raced as he considered the implications. It was a step into the unknown, a commitment to a vision centered not around numbers, but around nurturing a spirit. That might just be the key, he replied, appreciating the shift in focus from mere plans to tangible impact. He felt an unfamiliar surge of excitement mixed with a hint of fear. This was territory devoid of guarantees, yet profoundly richer than the sterile confines of his corporate empire. With each passing minute and as Anna gradually began to regain her consciousness, Mark realized the true significance of their mission. It wasn't merely about Anna's art, it was about rekindling dreams that had flickered in the dark and giving them a chance to blaze anew. It was also about confronting his own ghosts, the barriers he had built around himself in the name of success, which had ultimately led to isolation. As Anna began to stir, her eyes flickering open fully this time, Mark felt a tidal wave of trepidation crashing over him. He had to confront not just the reality of helping her, but the insecurities within himself. What if his understanding of leadership was overshadowed by the need for control? Would he be able to let go? Hey, Anna, he said, his voice softer now, laced with vulnerability, we were just talking about some ideas for art therapy. Anna's gaze shifted slowly, processing the warmth of his voice. Mark could see the flicker of hope mirrored in her eyes, and it pierced through his heart like an unexpected revelation. Here was a person yearning not just for recovery but for the freedom to express herself. Do you remember how much you loved painting? Josh encouraged gently. We want to help you get back to that. Mark observed the way Anna's face brightened at the mention of art. A flicker of recognition sparked in her expression, but uncertainty lingered. She hesitated, and Mark understood that hesitation all too well. It was the weight of past failures and the fear of the future crashing down on one's aspirations. He wrestled with his own fears, knowing that he couldn't let his insecurities infect this moment of potential. We believe in you, Anna, he stated, his voice firmer, infused with genuine resolve. You deserve this chance. As Anna listened, Mark realized that the most empowering step he could take was to relinquish his need for control, to learn the art of trust, an essential skill he had seldom practiced in his ascent to the top. Yet, even as a glimmer of hope emerged, an unsettling thought clawed at the edges of his mind: what if they invested everything into this endeavor, only to face rejection or disappointment? The fear of failure loomed large, but within it also lay the promise of growth and transformation, not just for Anna, but for himself and Josh. Just as Anna began to respond, the door swung open, drawing Mark's attention. The arrival of a social worker interrupted the intimate moment, thrusting Mark back into the reality of their situation. He could sense that this was an added layer, one that could either support their mission or derail it entirely. Hi there, I'm here to discuss some options regarding Anna's recovery plan, the social worker said, her voice steady but revealing nothing of what was to come. Mark's heart sank. What would this mean for their aspirations? He turned to Josh, ready to communicate the urgency of the moment, but also cognizant that his own journey was just beginning to unfold. The stakes had increased. The outcome would seem to define not only Anna's path but his own evolution as well. Let's hear what she has to say, he whispered to Josh, eyes fixed intently on the social worker. The day was just beginning, but as they braced themselves for the conversation ahead, Mark felt something shift. This was about so much more than Anna's art. This was about unveiling layers of himself long hidden beneath responsibility and fear. And as the words floated through the room, he sensed that their collective journey was heading toward an unveiling, one that would challenge each of them in unexpected ways. What secrets lay ahead, waiting to be revealed? Mark took a deep breath as the social worker's presence hovered over the room. The sterile walls of the hospital seemed to close in around him, amplifying the whirlwind of emotions brewing inside. He felt a mix of skepticism and hope. So much hinged on this conversation. How could he regain composure amidst the uncertainty brewing in the air? "Thank you for coming," Mark managed, steeling his voice with an authority that felt almost foreign. He was used to situations where his decisions dictated outcomes, yet none of that mattered here. He had to adapt quickly. Anna's recovery took precedence, and with it came the realization that he wasn't in control. "Of course, I understand this is a difficult time," the social worker said, offering a gentle smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm here to ensure Anna receives the support she needs. There are several programs we can discuss that might align with her interests." Mark watched as Anna, still regaining her bearings, listened cautiously to the social worker's words. He felt a pang of protectiveness wash over him. "We're considering implementing an art therapy program," he cut in, grappling with the urgency to keep this endeavor alive. "We really want to involve local artists and create an environment that nurtures her passions." "That sounds promising," the social worker replied, her eyebrows arching slightly as if assessing possibilities. "However, I need to understand more about Anna's needs to build a coherent recovery plan. It's essential to prioritize approaches that address her emotional well-being and physical capabilities." Mark flirted with a flash of frustration as he noted her clinical detachment. "We're more than just numbers or statistics here. This is about her life, her passions," he insisted, defensively. But even as the words left his lips, he felt an inner tug, his tendency to micromanage creeping back, undermining the trust he had just promised to build with Anna. "Believe me, I'm aware," the social worker said, her tone softening. "Art can play a huge role in therapy. But we must approach it through the lens of therapeutical efficacy. Would Anna be willing to engage with our suggested framework? It may require adjustments to your initial vision." Mark's mind raced. Adjustment? Wasn't that an implicit acknowledgement of control? He could feel the gnawing fear of failure contorting inside him, battling against the burgeoning urge to transform. Further, he was caught off guard as he realized that what scared him the most was this, trusting both Anna and the process. "Anna," he said, turning his focus toward her, "what do you think? Would you feel comfortable exploring art therapy with us, even if it means adapting our initial ideas?" Anna looked between him and the social worker, the flickering signs of apprehension evident in her demeanor. Mark could feel the weight of her hesitation, sensing the struggle within a battle many had fought before, a fight against vulnerability. He had spent years building walls to shield himself from the unpredictable nature of emotions. Was he now asking her to tear those walls down? With a deep breath, Anna nodded slightly, barely perceptibly. "I'd like to try if it means getting back to what I love." Mark felt a surge of relief and pride at her willingness, yet alongside it was the startling weight of responsibility. It was one thing to support someone else, it was another to confront his own internal hesitations. He felt the challenge ahead, one not just about Anna, but about himself and his fear of failure. The social worker acknowledged Anna's response. "I can work with the art therapy program in tandem with our other healing practices. It's about creating a multifaceted approach. It's important to keep open lines of communication and adjust as we go." As the conversation continued, Mark found himself deeply absorbed in the details being discussed. Strategies flashed through his mind, ways to merge his former business acumen with this tender undertaking. They could craft a plan, involve their community, and harness creativity in a way he had never considered before. But as they delved into practical steps and timelines, Mark experienced an unexpected jolt. The tenderness of the moment collided with his instincts to strategize, a twinge of doubt flaring up again. Was he losing sight of what truly mattered in his desire to take charge? Once the meeting concluded, Mark stepped out into the hallway, the sterile brightness contrasting sharply against the heaviness of his thoughts. Signals were firing in him. Somehow, he felt drawn to explore the depths of his own vulnerabilities alongside Anna's. He was on the brink of a journey that demanded a kind of discovery he hadn't prepared for, a profound exploration into empathy, the fragility that connected them all, and perhaps the risk of his own heart. As he glanced back to the room, he was suddenly struck by a realization. while he hoped to facilitate Anna's rehabilitation, he had the chance to experience his own renaissance as well. But where would such reconnections take him? Mark sensed a new urgency within himself, one that might unravel everything he once identified as success. What if facing these truths led to an unexpected confrontation within himself, shattering the facade he meticulously maintained? He steeled himself, ready to grapple with the chaos of rising emotions, wondering if he had the courage to embrace the truth hidden beneath his carefully curated identity. It was time to confront what it truly meant to be vulnerable. The direction the path would take remained uncertain, but the thrill of discovery awaited just around the corner. Mark paced the hospital hallway, the white walls reflecting the tumult within him. Each step crackled with anticipation as he processed the commitment he had made to support Anna. What does vulnerability really mean? He mused, grappling with the realization that it required more than just words. It demanded action, courage, and a willingness to embrace discomfort. The hallway seemed endless, each intersection a choice lifting him closer to a revelation, yet he hesitated. Back in the meeting room, where Anna had nodded in agreement, he had sensed the slightest shift within her array of hope. But hope didn't come without risk. The weight of nurturing this wound was heavy. He was no longer the strategist calling every shot from the sidelines. Instead, he found himself in an unfamiliar role: a supporter, a confidant. What path should he take? Mark's thoughts spiraled. Could he write the narrative of healing without the linear control he was so accustomed to? He envisioned the art program intertwining with Anna's process, but felt that without his hand guiding it, they might falter. This was no longer about figures and growth margins. This was real, visceral, and marred by uncertainty. The challenges for Anna mirrored those he faced in grappling with his deeper self. Feeling the walls closing in, he made his way to the hospital garden, a small outdoor space set apart from the clinical atmosphere. The fresh air hit his face like an awakening. It was quiet here, a sharp contrast to the chaos in his mind. He needed to confront this fear rather than let it paralyze him. Sitting on a bench, he closed his eyes and thought about Anna's willingness to engage in art therapy. She looked terrified, yet determined, he reflected. How could he harness that spirit, and let it light the way forward? He could help facilitate a space where she felt liberated to explore creatively. In doing so, perhaps he could confront his own lifetime of holding back. He took out his phone and began to jot down ideas. Immersive art workshops, open play sessions, maybe even inviting artists to share their journeys with Anna. He demanded more than just recovery, he wanted to spark passion. Yet deep inside, an echo resounded: what if it fails? It was as though an unseen critic loitered, waiting for his next misstep. Doubt intertwined with hope, forming an uneasy alliance. Empowerment was intoxicating, but in the face of that thrilling vulnerability also lay the terror of exposure, both for Anna and himself. Mark. The voice jolted him back to the present. It was the social worker, emerging from the hospital's inner depths. I wanted to catch you. I hear you're considering involving local artists in the therapy program. Yes, he responded, fighting to maintain composure. I believe they could make the process more engaging for Anna. It's important she feels connected, inspired. That's a great idea, she affirmed, but her tone shifted slightly, a pragmatic undertone surfacing. However, as we move forward, it's essential we ensure the program aligns with her therapeutic goals. Engagement is important, but structure is critical. Mark felt unease bubble within him. This isn't about strict structure, he countered. It's about creating an environment that allows her to express herself freely. Absolutely, but without a foundational framework, it can easily dissolve into chaos, she replied patiently. You must balance your vision with her actual needs. Once again, the confrontation activated a flame of resistance within him. He took a deep breath. I see value in the plan but want to ensure we remain flexible. Everyone's journey is unique, and so are the paths to healing. We can't box Anna in. Her eyes softened slightly, and he was struck by how his convictions began to falter. Here he was, advocating for someone else's freedom while potentially encaging himself in by inflexible definitions of control. What if, he began slowly, the best way to support Anna is to first examine my own rigid frameworks, my desire for control. This was complicated, confronting not only her needs but the very human fears that distorted his perspective. Choosing compassion over domination would become a practice only born from bravery. Would he embrace that possibility? The thought sparked a mix of apprehension and thrill. The conversation with the social worker had opened another door. He needed clarity within himself, perhaps even an ally in this quest to define what vulnerability meant in practice. But before he could dive deeper into this emerging understanding, an unexpected realization surfaced. It was not just a matter of constructing a program for Anna, it was his own emotional landscape that awaited exploration. With a purpose igniting inside him, Mark resolved to navigate these uncharted waters, recognizing the genuine stakes for both of them. It was time to turn toward this empathy-filled journey, where discovery teetered at the verge between healing and fear. But as he walked back toward Anna, surrounded by the thrum of hospital life, Mark understood more lay ahead than creating art. He would need to unearth the shadows hidden within himself and face them head-on. The path of personal development stretched wide before him, laden with uncertainty yet compelling one that might redefine everything he thought he knew about success and vulnerability. What if, he thought, heart racing, the greatest artistry of all is crafting my own narrative free from fear? Mark's footsteps quickened as he returned to Anna's room, his thoughts swirling like autumn leaves in the wind. The encounter with the social worker had stirred something deep within him. It demanded more than his immediate attention, it beckoned him to gather the fragments of his identity. The walls of control he had built were daunting, but he could no longer hide behind them. Anna's struggle mirrored his own inner battle. As he stepped into the softly lit room, the familiar sounds of the hospital faded, replaced by the rhythmic sounds of Anna's breathing and the faint beeping of the monitor. There she was, a bundle of tentative hope, perhaps waiting for him to initiate the next step in her journey. The thrill of possibility surged through him. This was about her healing, but paradoxically, it was also where he could unearth his buried desires for authenticity. "Hey, Anna," he greeted, his voice steadier than he felt inside. She smiled faintly, and that small gesture invigorated him. "I've been thinking about our plans. I want to make art therapy accessible and something more. I want you to feel the thrill of creation, not just the pressure to perform." Her eyes grew wide, curiosity lighting them up momentarily. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, her interest evident. "I want to create spaces where you can experiment freely, drawing, painting, whatever resonates with you. I'm thinking of bringing in local artists to inspire you with their stories. We'll make it a community," he said, his excitement spilling over, yet the shadow of uncertainty loomed. Could he genuinely adopt a guiding role without his compulsion to control? Anna's face clouded momentarily. "But what if I don't know how to paint? What if I fail?" Her vulnerability mirrored his own fears. "What if we eliminate the idea of failing altogether? What if it's less about the final piece and more about the process? I want you to discover your voice in this art. There's no right or wrong," Mark voiced passionately, his heart racing with conviction. The silence that followed was thick, filled with Anna's hesitation and Mark's suspended breath. In that moment, he felt achingly familiar, a prison of expectation entwined with the hope of uncharted territory. Yet he pushed through those doubts. "I understand if it's daunting. But I believe in you, Anna. I believe in what you can express." A tremor of life flickered in Anna's expression, and he could sense the battle within her. It was a challenge, yes, but it was also an invitation to be free to dance on the edge of fear and hope. Just then, her eyes welled with tears. "You're right, it is scary," Anna admitted, her voice choked with emotion. "I want to, but no, but," he interrupted, his tone gentle yet insistent. "We'll walk this path together. Step by step. You aren't alone, and I promise it won't be just about pouring paint on a canvas, it will be a dialogue that matters." As they spoke, Mark felt the weight of his own insecurities lift, replaced by a flicker of determination. This wasn't merely about facilitating Anna's healing journey, it was about reconstructing his own fragmented self. The realization crashed over him: by freeing Anna's journey from rigid parameters, he could dismantle the barriers he had built within himself. He observed a stark irony: his desire to assist her ignited his own liberation. Yet, amidst the surge of inspiration, a gnawing question lingered. Was he equipped to manage the delicate balance of passion and structure? Could he really abandon the rigid confines he had lived by without losing his way? He was stepping into uncharted territory, guided only by a sense of duty yet burdened by the weight of accountability. As they exchanged thoughts, the sun dipped lower beyond the hospital walls, casting long shadows that engulfed the room. Mark was not just witnessing Anna's journey, he was embarking on his own, facing the raw edges of self-doubt and ambition. The urgency spurred him on: he had to commit fully, or risk losing the momentum generated in that moment. Let's start small, he suggested, the notion taking shape. How about a simple drawing to break the ice? Just you, me, and a few colors. We can see what emerges. Anna nodded. Okay, she replied, her trepidation lingering, yet a hint of excitement tempered her uncertainty. Encouraged, Mark added with a newfound grit, together, we'll not only create art but also redefine what it means to live and express freely. But I also need you to promise me be honest with yourself. We can only move forward if you open up. Mark's heart raced at the precipice of this exchange. He felt the seeds of a vital truth begin to germinate: the battle against vulnerability was not an endpoint but an evolution. As the two prepared to begin their journey of artistic exploration, the looming question of his former fears echoed insistently in his mind: could he truly detach from the need for control and embrace the uncertainty of creativity? What awaited him as he stepped deeper into the abyss of personal reckoning? He glanced over to Anna, sensing the embarking expedition toward healing would, in turn, redefine him. With the mixing of paints and emotions waiting to unfold between them, anticipation crackled anew. It felt monumental, life-altering, yet far from resolved. Today marks a new beginning, he thought, but beneath the surface, a sense of foreboding loomed. How far were they both willing to go when the colors of their inner worlds began to blend together? What if, he pondered, this journey reveals more than we ever anticipated? As Mark steadied his hand, the trembling of his heart echoed louder than the rhythmic beeping of Anna's monitor. Each brushstroke held the weight of unspoken fears and aspirations, both his and hers. He dipped the tip of the brush into vibrant blue, a stark contrast against the stark white canvas that anxiously awaited the dance of colors, a promise of expression. Okay, just start with something that feels right, he said, attempting to guide Anna, though he could feel the unease radiating from her. She watched the paint swirl on the palette, her lips pressed into a thin line as if wrestling with an unrelenting self-critique. Her doubts mirrored his own, the thought of palpable failure loomed large. Mark broke the silence. What about a simple shape? A circle, perhaps? Something that represents a beginning. Anna's fingers brushed the brush but hesitated. What if it doesn't look right? His heart clenched, her words echoed his own fears of inadequacy. He took a breath, choosing his words carefully. What does a circle mean to you? It could be anything: the sun, life, any moment that feels significant. Mark realized the vulnerability of this exercise extended beyond the canvas. It stripped away layers of self-protection, leaving raw feelings exposed. Challenges were not just tasks but opportunities for growth, yet the stakes felt higher with each moment. He sensed the fragility in the air, thickening with every breath Anna took. She hesitated, her voice trembling. I don't know if I can find something that meaningful. Then we start from the here and now, he replied gently. Let's just put color down, without a goal. Trust me, trust yourself. He watched her draw in a deep breath and reached toward the colors. The brush quivered until she finally pressed it against the canvas. The blue spread across white, an initial foray into a territory filled with uncertainty. The moment encapsulated a shared breakthrough, reminding him of his journey. As Anna continued, inkling to find comfort in the act, Mark dipped his own brush, choosing a vibrant yellow. Layered on top of her blue, it wouldn't dilute the depth. Instead, it would create a conversation between their colors, their fears, their hopes. It was then he realized they were weaving an unspoken narrative, a union of two identities challenging the invisible barriers that confine them. Yet, behind that exhilarating canvas lay an undertow of anxiety. Was he truly prepared to stand beside Anna, encourage her exploration while grappling with his own demands for perfection? Each stroke was a personal affirmation, a testament to willingness to let go of the suffocating need for precision. The sweet scent of paint hung thick in the air, punctuating silence until Anna uttered, "I feel lighter." "Good, that's the essence," he said. "Art has a way of freeing us. It's like a form of meditation." A grin split her face, a flicker of realization shining through her eyes. It was intoxicating, the possibilities that lay ahead, a gentle awakening of her spirit was unfolding. Suddenly, Mark's phone buzzed on the table, pulling him back into reality. He glanced at the screen, the name swirling with dread, a call from his father. The weight of expectation thumped mercilessly in his chest. "Excuse me," he murmured, stepping away, the buzzing deeper echoing the conflict within him. He answered reluctantly, bracing himself for a confrontation that promised little but criticism. "Mark, you haven't returned my calls," his father's stern voice cut through. "I expected results. This," he continued, "is not what I had in mind for you." The conversation burgeoned, and with each word, Mark felt the walls he had begun to chip away rise sharply. Expectations clawed at him incessantly, forcing him momentarily back into his previous role, the dutiful son, the controlled perfectionist. As he struggled to address his father's concerns while facilitating Anna's growth, a paradox emerged. His burgeoning passion for guiding others was igniting an internal war between familial duty and personal authenticity. Would he succumb again to the mold his father had created for him, or would he forge a new path of conviction alongside Anna? Returning to the colors, shadows from the conversation loomed thick, and he took in the soft brush of Anna against her canvas. She was brave, and he was fighting against that very bravery. Selecting the brush once more, he dipped it into vivid orange, bringing recognition that healing wasn't solely in the act of creating but also in the acceptance of imperfection. Maybe it's not about the painting, he thought as he began painting alongside her. Each moment hung heavy with tension as their expressions began to bleed together. Where colors met, so too did the perceptions of who they were begin to dissolve. The question lingered, could they both redefine what it meant to succeed? With every stroke, insecurity whispered ominously. What if he could not commit to this new understanding of self? Gathering resolve, Mark pressed forward, determined to embrace this whirlwind of exploration. But the memory of his father's judgment loomed larger, threatening to unravel everything he was trying to build. And in that fragile moment, just as newfound connections were blossoming, he felt the ground beneath him shift. Would he stand firm in his resolve, or spiral back into the familiar grip of suffocating expectations? As their creations unfolded before them, the chaos of self-discovery beckoned. How would he rise up against those that held him to the past? With the colors swirling on canvas and emotions intertwining in uncertainty, one truth rang clear: Mark was unraveling. But was he prepared for what lay beneath the surface? As Mark painted beside Anna, the vibrant colors began to weave a narrative that was compelling and transformative. Each stroke held the weight of a decision he would have to embrace, the swirls of paint an affirmation that he was willing to shake free of expectations that had long bound him. Amidst the chaos of his inner thoughts, a gentle yet growing determination began to forge a new identity, one not defined by metrics of success but by authentic connection to his own humanity. "Dad?" Josh's voice cut through a moment of silence, stirring Mark from his distracted existence. The shadows of that earlier conversation with his father loomed, reminding him of the struggle within. "I think you're really getting through to Anna," Josh continued, eyes wide with admiration. "It's like she's been asleep, and now her world is coming back." His son's words erupted an overwhelming mix of pride and vulnerability within Mark. "This is more than just about her art, Josh," he replied, paintbrush in hand, forcing himself to acknowledge the depth of the moment. "It's showing me a new way to see life. A way to feel." Anna paused, her gaze drifting over to them, understanding reflecting in her dark eyes. "I did lose my way," she whispered. "But today, I feel like I can start again." Those words struck a chord in Mark, reverberating deep within, echoing the voice in him that sought to break free from the confines of his past. His role as a billionaire and son was fading, revealing the chance to become a collaborator in life, filled with creativity and spirit. With each subsequent brushstroke alongside Anna, he felt fragments of trepidation recede. The act of painting together wasn't just therapy for Anna, it was cathartic for him too. The vivid juxtaposition of colors on the canvas reflected the journeys they had undertaken, hers marked by resilience and struggle, and his, an awakening to empathy. "Can we do more tomorrow?" Anna asked hesitantly, a flicker of hope dancing in her expression as she laid the brush down. Mark stayed still for a heartbeat, enveloped in what that question symbolized, a commitment to their shared journey ahead. "Absolutely," he affirmed, the promise filling him with an invigorating sense of purpose. "We'll build something together, art, community, maybe even something that can inspire others like you." A thread of urgency pulsed through him. What if he extended this bond and built a platform that not only nurtured Anna's artistry but created a ripple effect of empowerment? Just then, the reality of life beyond the hospital door intruded. His phone buzzed again, an urgent text from his father followed by a missed call notification. Each beep felt like a reminder of the past, but beneath that initial dread, he realized it wasn't the weight of his father's disapproval that mattered anymore. It was the life he was creating in the present. "Josh, I think it's time I confront some ghosts," Mark admitted, looking at his son. "I need to reconnect with my own passions, start rolling back the years of expectations." Josh nodded, a mixture of pride and concern crossing his face. "You can do it, Dad. We all have to start from somewhere." As they shared a moment of fortitude, Mark felt a surge of clarity. The shadows of his past didn't have to dictate his future. He could leave behind the scrutiny of his father and embrace the warmth of this newfound relationship with Anna and Josh, giving space to vulnerability and risk. "Let us build that program, together," he said, commitment solidifying his resolve. The weight of expectation began to lift, replaced with determination, a determination to create, to support, and to show compassion, both to those around him and to himself. When he turned back to Anna, he sensed the spark of creativity re-emerging within her, and he found solace in the connection they were forging. "Tomorrow, we'll begin a new canvas," he breathed, glancing at the now blossoming masterpiece they had begun together. "And it won't just be about art, but about reclaiming who we are." As they prepared to leave the room, glancing at the drying canvas, a testimony to their shared journey and exhilarating anticipation stirred within him. There, together, they had found a space filled with possibility, embracing the wild and freeing act of creation. Mark realized he was no longer merely a billionaire or a dutiful son, he was a father, a nurturer of dreams, and a person striving to redefine his identity through compassion and connection. Perhaps this initiative could extend beyond Anna, reaching into his work life, reshaping it to allow space for authenticity. The pathway ahead was still uncertain, but now it felt filled with potential. Armed with new purpose, Mark felt ready to not just help Anna, but to stake a claim to his own emotional freedom as well. As they walked out of the hospital, Mark inhaled deeply, the air rich with the promise of change. The future stretched out before them, bright as the daylight pouring in through the open doors. He was ready to embrace every color of life, willing to explore the full spectrum of what it meant to truly live. From this day forward, he vowed, he would no longer shy from the colors of vulnerability. He would paint his own path. It was his time to finally integrate passion into a life once ruled by the pursuit of wealth alone. And as Mark glanced fleetingly at the canvas, he understood they all had a story waiting to be told. It was the moment for action, for transformation, and most importantly, for genuine connection. This wasn't just a beginning for Anna, it was the dawn of a rebirth for himself as well. Now he was ready to confront the future. No more holding back. Life was a canvas, and he was determined to fill it vibrantly, brushstroke by brushstroke. At this moment, outcomes didn't matter. What mattered was the journey together. With that, he whispered to himself one final reminder that propelled him forward: every masterpiece begins with a single stroke. Mark took a deep breath, ready to create the life he had always desired, layered with authentic connections, understanding, and passion. This was it, his pursuit of real fulfillment had finally begun. Don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could inspire your own transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure others find their own path of growth. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending. You need to share your thoughts with us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the power of personal overcoming stories together.